or
Okay.
levels of facility management: the strategic level, tactical level, and operational level. And you made mention of the strategic level plans that are long-term in nature,
Okay.
for more than 12 months, usually for more than 12 months, and decisions are made at this level.
Okay.
While the tactical plans can be at the operational level as well, that as in sometimes it is hand in hand, the tactical and operational.
Okay.
At times you have a lot of people, as in it is when things go bad, they spend money to fix it, as in you spend money to fix it. At this level is when things are being fixed.
Okay.
You mentioned one location, one site owned by a single owner.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
The multiple locations
Yes. Yes.
in regions, divisions.
Okay.
And these have regional offices, where multiple locations have regional offices. And you made mention of some organizations. You gave example of MTN. These companies usually they probably have regions like in West Africa, Middle East, and all of that. These are the multinationals.
Sweet. Wow, wonderful. If I have to give you mark now, I just give you 100% straight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that contribution. At least I'm delighted. At least you picked a lot of the discussion yesterday. That's good. So today we'll be going straight to procurement management. So that you notice that facility management and procurement management actually go hand in hand. And in some organization, you probably have one person working as a facility person, at the same time also working as a procurement person. In some organization, you have them different. But apart from that, you discover that facility management use procurement management a lot, which is not really strange, given the fact that in facility management we deal with a lot of contractors. You're either fixing one thing or the other. So most of the time we are always at the beck and call of the procurement department or the procurement management process. So today we are going to look at what procurement management is in general terms, how it relates to facility management, and how we as facility managers can actually take advantage of the procurement system for our own advantage. So I'll be diving straight into the cost material. I've introduced myself. This is a virtual class, so most of this will not really be applicable, except the do not disrupt. Everyone is a participant, and conversation at the time and stuff like that. So I will go straight. The cost objective is understand the distinction between procurement and purchasing. Understand the process of procurement. The point to note for this is tender. What is tender? What is bidder? What criteria? Understand the basic elements, types, and execution of FM contracts. Understand what we call service level agreement. For some of us that have been in FM for a while, a year, 2 years, at least for the first few months in your FM career, you probably will have heard KPI, SLA, CAT. Those are some of the jargons we use in facility management to bobo ourselves, but well, it's a good boboing anyway. So they are not really one crazy or one complicated terms like that. Like SLA is just service level agreement, KPI is just key performance indicator, CAT is just turnaround time. You might probably get PPMs and the likes, but as you go in the profession, you get to understand some of the key terms and how they relate to your day-to-day activities. We are going to talk about conflict resolutions during closeout and stuff like that. Closeout is one of the terms you use in project management to mark the end of the project. So the cost outline is not that much. I just have about 6 modules to discuss. The first module is talking about procurement, the key terms, in-house outsourcing, procurement, work process flow, supplier pre-qualification, tender, bid selection, contracts. So we'll talk about contract. That's the element of contracting, type, negotiation, and execution. We talked about contract performance management. We'll talk about facility services contract, where we'll talk about the SLAs. We talked about the fraud, conflict resolution, and closeout. Then we will call it a day at the end of the 6th module. So module 1, what is procurement? The key definition of procurement, we say procurement is actually a systematic process which an organization reaches formal contract for the purchase of goods and or services. It is different from purchasing the specific buying activity or the placing of order. So let me just break it down. Procurement is not when you go to the market to buy 3 horsepower AC. That's not procurement. What you are basically doing is purchasing, right? Procurement is not when you ask a vendor, bring 20 pieces of 20 pieces of FM 200, for example, and he brought it. That's not procurement. That's just purely purchasing. Now, procurement is actually a process or a series of activities that a company engage in before the purchasing activity is done. Now, so it's a systematic approach, more like a step-to-step processes or guide that a company has to undertake in order for them to come to an agreement to get a particular item. Probably you want to purchase a generator, and you want to purchase maybe a couple of AC equipment, or probably you want to do maybe a mini project, you need a service, maybe a specialized service and stuff like that. So those kind of processes you do, try to understand the scope of services. For example, we want to probably construct a 3-bedroom flat, for example. I won't just call Baba Lassi to come and start digging the ground, start laying the block, right? Basically, what you want to do is you probably bring a team of professionals. They are probably going to come up with drawings. Based on those drawings, maybe the quantities of will come up with specification. Okay, this is the total number of blocks we need. This is the total number of bags of cement we need. We'll need maybe so number of maybe so plot of land. You gather all those your requirements. Then you say, okay, how do you want this thing to go? What is our budget? You do all those in-house stuff. So based on those documentation you have done, you now say, okay, after I've done this documentation, this is how I want the building to look like. This is the kind of features I want in the building, and this is my cost, right? Based on your internal whatever you feel, maybe we're supposed to use maybe 500 million for us to probably buy the land and complete the building based on your location. It's just an estimate. So based on those initial information you have done, then you go out there and say, okay, companies that are into building, can you please submit quotation based on these particular criteria? Can you please submit a quotation to let us know how much you will help us to build a 3-bedroom flat in, for example, in Ikorodu, only 1 plot of land, right? Those companies will come, right? Maybe you have a meeting with them. They'll go through the documentation you have given to them. They'll probably visit the plan, the location, and based on that, they'll do their own internal whatever, and those companies will submit their proposals. Then you are going to take those proposals internally. You are going to go through the proposals, right, and benchmark those proposals with your initial requirements. Those requirements you have set initially before you went into the market to look for contractor. Then based on that, at the end of the day, you are going to select one contractor and say, you know what, based on everything, it looks as if you understand what we are trying to do. And because of that, you're going to sign an agreement, which is called a contract, right? A legal agreement with the person and say, okay, go ahead and start the work. Now, that entire process you have done is what we call a procurement process, or is what we call procurement, right? All the entire activities you have done from the planning stage, the documentation stage, the invitation stage to the contractor, the signing of agreements. Even when you finish signing the agreement, there's still what we call contract performance management until the project is delivered. And Baba, maybe it's Baba Lati that finally get the project, and Baba Lati says, okay, I am done with your building. Yeah, take your key. You can now start using your building. That's the end of your procurement activity. That entire activity is what we call procurement, right? The process of procuring something, right, is the procurement, right? It's not just the buying or the purchasing, it's just an activity inside the procurement, inside the entire procurement life cycle, right? So as the definition is saying, the procurement is a process, right, in which people come to go through in making a decision concerning the goods or services. The explanation I've just given to you now is a service, it's not a good. If probably I want to buy a generator, for example, which is a good, I'm still going to go through the same process. Oh, what kind of capacity of generator do we want? What kind of brand do you think will be better for us? Should we consider a diesel generator or a petrol generator? Or probably should we consider solar? You get now all those planning, all those iteration process is the procurement process. So why do we go through that entire interesting activity? Why can't I just go to the market and just buy, right? Why do I need to go through that process? When people hear process, this thing must be very stressful. So why do I need to go through that entire activity just to buy a piece of equipment? So the reason why we do that is, in peculiarity to our country, everybody is fast finger. Everybody wants to, shop and claim out, and it's very peculiar in facility management, right? Everybody wants to scam the organ, like, they can just make money. I've seen a lot of young facility management professionals that get into the profession, and the first thing in their head is, when I get into that place, I shop more money. Make I just buy small picanto, you get, and maybe just rent 2-bedroom flat from your 100,000 naira salary per month. You get, you want to rent a 2-bedroom flat in Aja and buy a picanto of 4 something million. You get, because you feel, oh, I can easily, once they say we should buy something of 100 naira, I just put 50 naira on top, 150.
Hello?
You get, just buy the entire stuff. Now,
Hello?
the reason, hello? Yes, Mr. Ayokoya Tunde. Do you want to tell me something? Kindly mute your mic, please. All right. Sorry for the break in transmission. Barakat, please, can you please help me to handle this, please? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry for the break in transmission. All right. So let me quickly project. Where's my projection? Yeah. Okay, this is it. Now, so back to our wonderful discussion. Now, so why do we need to go through this painstaking activity called procurement, right? The first reason why organizations go through the entire procurement process is to maximize cost effectiveness and achieve what we call best value for money. Right? When we say best value for money, we are saying if I'm going to buy a piece of equipment for X amount of naira, is that the best value I can get that particular equipment for? If I'm going to pay an X amount of money for a service, right, will the value I'm getting from that service be equal to the amount I'm paying for that service? I want to ensure that I am not paying too high for the service I'm trying to deliver, and the person selling to me wants to ensure that he or she is not being paid too little, right? So we want to create a kind of a level playing ground for both the buyer and the seller, right? We want to protect the company, which most of the time is probably the buyer. I want to protect maybe the service provider, which actually most of the time is the seller. You want to protect the unwary who to be purchaser. Like I said, you want to protect the person that wants to buy, right? And you want to give them a sense that, oh, we are getting the best value for money. We are getting the best value out of what we want to buy. You want to ensure that conform with all applicable laws and regulations. As far as Nigeria is concerned, there's a procurement law. So you want to ensure that, oh, apart from the procurement law, there are some goods or services you want to buy that you discover that there are regulatory compliance surrounding that. So you want to ensure that, oh, all the necessary stuff I needed to buy. For example, I might want to probably get for example now, as simple as fumigation activities is, which every facility management professional is probably conversant to it. Do you know that in Nigeria there are regulatory requirements for a fumigation from a fumigation vendor? Before you can say, oh, I'm a fumigator, I'm a fumigation vendor, let me come and fumigate your premises, there are certain legal certificates that they are supposed to collect from the local government of that premises. So, for example, if I have a facility in Yaba, for example, and a fumigation vendor wants to come and render a fumigation service to my facility, that fumigation vendor needs to first go and register at the Yaba local government. All right. He has to have the necessary certificate that qualify him or her to be able to function as a fumigation vendor, right? Which means if they have not obtained those legal requirements and whatever, and I probably went out because, oh, this guy have 1 million years of experience, he can, in fact, he can fumigate the entire whatever with his entire house closed, and everything will be perfect. At the end of the day, he's supposed to issue me a fumigation certificate, which I'm supposed to tender when the Ministry of Health comes to visit my premises to ensure that I am complying with the health regulatories and whatever. When I tender that particular certificate to them to show that I am in compliance with the basic health regulation, that certificate will be rejected and I will be fined. But the truth is, I fumigated my premises. I don't have rats. There's no mosquito. Everywhere is clean, right? The fumigation vendor has done an excellent job. But the point is, the certificate he gave to me has no legal standing. And because of that, irrespective of the fact that we have done it, I will still be fined. And probably the person too will be fined because we did not conform with applicable laws and regulations with respect to that fumigation service. But if you have done a procurement, if you have gone through procurement during the process of trying to find out which vendor to use, they will have take care of this the legal and regulatory requirements by ensuring that all the vendors that probably submit quotation and tenders have all the necessary legal requirements before you can even shortlist them and consider their proposal for consideration in the bid. Now, one of the reasons we go through procurement is to treat all prospective suppliers and their representatives fairly and impartial. What this really simply means that if I want to do a procurement activity, right, most of the time, company will invite all those who show there's something we call indication of interest, right? Maybe so if I want to bid, if I'm asking people to submit proposal, and the first thing they are going to submit is they are going to submit a form to show, oh, I am interested in this. I'm interested in rendering this service. In that, they are going to give us maybe basic information about their company, like their CAC, maybe list of clients and some other things, just to convince us that, oh, they have the technical capacity to do that kind of job. Now, once I have received that, I'm going to invite all of them. It can either be an on-site meeting or a virtual meeting where we are going to have what we call a briefing. Now, that will ensure that all participants have the same basic information, right? Not that I will call Baba Beji and say, you know what you are quoting for is 3 acres of land. Then I'll call Baba Sheung, another vendor, and say, no, it's just 2 acres of land though. Then I'll probably call Baba Ngozi, another vendor, and tell him 6 acres of land. Look at what I've done there. I've given 3 vendors 3 different information, which means by the time they are quoting, they are going to quote different values. And one of the key principles in procurement that, well, if you feel all your vendors have equal capacity to deliver, you probably look at who is the person giving me the lowest bid. Now, if in actuality the size of land is 3 acres of land, the first person that I told that is 2 acres of land is going to underbid, right? The person that I told is 6 acres of land is going to overbid. Probably the person that I told 3 acres of land is going to quote something close. But if I want to go by the principle of the lowest bid, I'm going to pick the person with that quote for 2 acres because of it's cheap. Oh, let's put money. Yes, we'll put money. Everybody will be happy, but at the end of the day, the guy is going to fail because he has underquoted for that particular service. It's going to fail. He's going to lose money. We as a company, we are going to likely going to lose money. Even if we did not lose money, we are going to waste our time. So it is not. So in order to ensure that everybody have the same basic information, everybody has a basic understanding of what the service the client is looking for, we undergo what we call procurement process, or we undergo what we call procurement to ensure that there's fairness, everybody have necessary information, everybody is treated equally. I will not say because this man is from my church or I know his brother, I'll just pass you some information so that you have an advantage ahead of others. When you do that, you are going to hurt yourself, and they're likely going to hurt your company, and there's a likelihood that even the person you are trying to help, you are going to hurt them on the long run. I've had a case where somebody is trying to help us and help us, and it's like, oh, this thing, try to there's this quotation, just do with around 300,000 naira and blah, blah, blah. When we did the calculation, based on our own internal standard, the 300,000 naira is not going to work for us. If at the end of the day, we say, oh, based on desperation, let's just find a way, so that our bid will not be making sense. And if we are even able to patch everything, at the end of the day, we are not going to deliver on that job. Because based on our own internal system and our internal calculation, that particular price we are quoting is below what will work for us as a company. Now, one of the other reasons why we undergo procurement is to adhere to organization policies such as sustainability, diversity, equality, and workforce issues. So every organization has a policy. We want to probably maintain a ratio of male and female in the organization. When we're talking about equality, or we want to have a percentage of Black people, white people. They're talking about diversity or sustainability. Everything we want to be using has to be something that has low carbon content, so that we will reduce our carbon footprint and probably contribute very little to the ozone layer. If you have a kind of policy in the organization, which is sustainability, right? We need to undergo procurement process in such a way that when we are probably want to buy a particular asset, we're probably going to check our sustainability policy and ensure that the requirement or the requirement for that particular item that we are trying to get meet this basic consideration. For example, because of sustainability consideration, some organizations don't use R22 for their air conditioning, because they say it has chloroform and has effect on the whatever. That's their own sustainability factor. So which means if they are buying a piece of AC, for example, they are going to check the refrigerant. If the refrigerant does not comply with the so-called non-ozone depleting refrigerant, they are not buying it. It doesn't meet their requirements. There are some organizations, because of sustainability, they don't use anything asbestos that has asbestos material in it, which means when they are trying to get a service and a contractor is recommending a service, they have to be very careful that they don't recommend anything that has asbestos in it. So based on this, the reason why we carry out procurement is to ensure that whatever decision we are coming to at the end of the day with respect to our purchase activity aligns with our organization policy. Another reason why we undergo procurement is to undertake in accordance with the highest professional standards and ethics. You want to ensure that everything you are doing is in line with your professional practice, is standard, is best practice, is ethical. There's no corner or wuru to whatever you are doing. Also is to ensure organized and effective and structure and imbibe in the organization. You want to ensure that everything you are doing, right, is structured. Every decision you made in the process of buying a particular whatever, there's a logical reason to it. There are documentation to show this was done, this was done, this was done. A practical example to this was last year I was managing an industrial plant, and during the process we had issue with a borehole, and because of that we were supposed to after fought and battle with the contractor, we were supposed to dig a new borehole, and I was told to pull out of that process and let the maintenance department deal with the process, because they just did a similar borehole in the factory, and so that they can use the same procurement, the same vendor for the same activity. But based on our internal procurement policy, we are supposed to engage 3 vendors, which is fine. Now, 3 vendors quoted, submitted their quotes. After their submission of their quotes, someone in project outside my own department went ahead to recommend one vendor. There's no technical presentation, there's nothing. He just single-handedly went to approve one vendor, and his reason was like, so that vendor was the highest. They quoted for about 4 million naira to dig a domestic borehole. I don't know who dig a domestic borehole for 4 million naira anyway. Now, because procurement is a very structured way, I could easily pull out the procurement documentation, I went through it and I saw where he wrote, I am disqualifying procurement vendor one because in the past they have worked for us and they messed up. Okay, fine, good reasoning. That's good. Yes, I am disqualifying procurement contractor two because I felt they are not competent because they have not worked for us before. How? Why do you think they are not competent? They are part of your vendors list, right? They are not just random people on the road. They are part of your vendors list. So how do you come to that conclusion? What was the metrics? There was no metrics. So you just went and said, okay, I'm picking vendors 4 because of X, Y, Z. There was no documentation for it. But assuming we did not have a procurement process, I won't have been able to pull out that documentation and be able to spot all those my practice they were trying to run with respect to the borrow project, right? So procurement process let us to be effective and create a kind of a structured way for us to be able to carry out some of the activities we perform in an organization. It's also help us to develop a management information and use it for performance measure. So if I have given out a job to a contractor, if I have not done procurement, I have not gone through procurement, I just like, okay, Mr. John, you should be able for you to install a transformer. And I say, yeah. I have 20-something years of experience. I can install transformer. I've installed transformer here, and there. Okay, fine, all fine and good. Okay, I have this 500 kVA transformer. Can you please install for me? Oh, no one I will install. And he went ahead to install. How do we ensure that what he has installed, right, will meet our requirements? Procurement process. Because in the procurement process, before we call Mr. Bayo to come and install the transformer, we will probably have done a lot of internal research and internal documentation to document exactly what we intend to get out of that transformer. So which means at the end of the day, when we give the project out, we can use the same documentation to check what Mr. Bayo have done, if it's in line with what we are looking for. So it's a way for us. So procurement gives us a tool to measure the output of our action and decision, right? And so let's move forward. So as you can see here, you discover that it is very essential that an organization carry out a procurement, go through a procurement process when they are trying to procure a service or a goods, because it helps to save money, it protects everybody within the organization, both the buyers and the sellers, ensure the conformation with statutory laws and regulations and the likes. So like I said, when we talked about value for money, this is one of the terms you come across most of the time in facility management. And value for money is talking about having the right product at the right time at the right price. If I buy a piece of land for 10,000 naira in 1960, right? Okay, for example, now let me just cite this example. Somebody will probably say you come and buy one plot of land in Ijebu-Ode, and you're in Lagos, you work in Lagos, you do everything in Lagos, you have no business in Ijebu-Ode, probably inside one forest in Ijebu-Ode, you're buying the land. Yeah, the land is cheap, but it's not the right time. Probably you have no use for that particular piece of land, which means there's no value for money for what you have bought. But if somebody says, okay, come and buy a piece of land on the highland for maybe ₦1 million, so to say, and probably the location is very close to where you are working, not too far from where your children are going to school, say, that's a good buy, because it is something you buy at the right time in a good location that you can actually put to use. So when you say value for money, in the simplest time is that when I buy something, maybe I buy a goods or a service, the value I am extracting from that, right, is equivalent to the money I'm spending. Now we are talking of iPhone, maybe iPhone 14 Pro, which is the latest iPhone, if I'm not mistaken. While we are going through social media, they said it goes to about 1.8 million naira and stuff like that. Now, some people will rush and go and buy it, right? 1.8 million naira. And you, that you don't have 1.8 million naira to buy it, to you, like, that's stupid. How does somebody buy phone just to press it, right? Which means to you, right, the phone, the value of that phone does not worth the money. Yeah, Apple probably tell you have this fancy thing, you have this fancy, and you're like, forget, even my small Samsung here can do and undo, right? That is your own mindset, right? Which means for you, you can't spend 1.8 million naira to buy a piece of phone, because the value you ascribe to that phone is not up to 1.8 million naira. But somebody that bought a maybe 1.8 million naira phone, and you know that when I buy this phone, I'm a boy, it's not work club last song. No, when I bounce into the club and I'm holding it, everybody just say, chama, alaye, and stuff like that. That is what he's looking for. That's what he's ascribing the value to. So to that person, the 1.8 million naira is spending on the iPhone 4, give him the kind of joy, the kind of value he's looking for. So to him, it has value for money, even though to another person, he's just a stupid man. Somebody say 1.8, 1.8, 1.5 million. That is to say, that 1.8, I can easily use it to buy one plot of land in probably in the Ikorodu there. And before you know, I would do foundation and do 2 rooms and probably stop paying landlord. That's a good way to spend my money. To you, one plot of land in Ikorodu is the value for money. That's the value for that 1.8. Are you getting my point? So when we talk about value for money, it's subjective. Well, because the value ascribed to the value Mr. A will ascribe to a good is different from the value Mr. B will ascribe to a good. So when you bring it down, to facility management, what do we refer to value for money? Now, before you go out there as a facility professional or as a professional generally to probably get a good or service for your organization, there's either a problem or a need your organization is trying to solve. Right? Oh, my organization we are running activity and probably the light in that area is not good. I will feel like we should buy generator. Right? What is the cost of not having generator on the business? If there's probably your company run for 8 hours in a day, and probably NEPA so good give you 4 hours light in a day. That remaining 4 hours that you do not have light, right? What is the cost to the business? So if you evaluate the cost to the business, okay, in a day, if we do not have light for 4 hours, the company is going to lose 20 million in a day. 20 million in a day, that's 255 days in a year. That's a lot of money, which means if you do that calculation and somebody say, come and buy maybe a 50 kVA generator, but let's say a 60 kVA generator for like 50 million, right? You look at 50 million. What is the life cycle of that generator? Oh, that generator, if it's well managed and well maintained, probably is going to last you 10 years. 10 years. That means if I divide 50 million by 10 years, that should give me about 6 million naira average per year on the cost or whatever. That's good. That's a good value. You know, it's ever a business, you can make more money. To you, that's the value you want to extract from that. So if at the end of the day, you now buy the generator that's supposed to last for 10 years, after like 6 months, it's breaking down, you are spending money on it. The value of money on that generator is gradually eroding. Are you getting my point now? So when you talk about value of money, it's talking about what value we are trying to extract. In banks, for example, they like their environment to be, to be clean, there's no sand on the ground, everywhere looks clean, the restroom look clean. What they are trying to sell is look and feel. They want a situation where people come to the bank, they feel comfortable, they can bring their money, they have more inflow to the bank, and more money to the more people bring money to the bank, the more the bank make more money. Which means the bank will pay money to a company to come and carry out cleaning services to their organization, and they are going to pay what they feel is appropriate for that service based on the value they want to extract from that service. So that's what value for money is all about. Now, in procurement, like I said, there are different activities in procurement. There's a purchasing, there's a lease, and when you want to do procurement, there's a lot of thought processes that goes into it. Should we buy? Right? Purchasing provides more flexibility. You want to buy, should we buy a property, right? Or should we lease it? So you have to, like I said, you have to understand what your organization is trying to do, so that you'll be able to tailor your procurement process towards the need of your organization. If you have an organization that does not want to really spend money, they want to conserve their capital, right? The kind of procurement process I'm going to launch is going to get towards leasing a property, right? If my private, I'm working for a fintech that just got like $20 million from their foreign partner, you know, there's money that everybody wants to spend, right? They might not be too concerned about buying their own generator, buying or building their own property. The kind of procurement process I'm going to throw in that direction too will be based on this requirement. Then we have also cost consideration. We talk about cash flow and tax position. We talk about organization prefer. Some organizations prefer to manage, okay, we should have this percentage of property, then we should have this percentage of rented property, right? Anticipated terms of use. What did they need that particular good or service for? Then risk exposure and flexibility. So those are some of the things you are going to consider when you are trying to make a decision about getting a goods or a services. What are the benefits? Now, hold on, I think, yes. Okay, so what are the benefits? In procurement, one of the decisions you make in procurement is you want to decide if you want to do what they call in-house services or outsource services. If you have been in facility management for a long, you have outsource services as in-house. What is in-house? What is outsourced? In-house is when you have a service that is provided to an organization by their own staff. Those are in-house services. When you have that service being provided by a third-party organization, we call them outsourced services, right? And this kind of decision is one of the critical areas of facility management procurement. Is one of the critical decisions in procurement management, right? You want to decide, should I outsource my facility service or should we do it in-house? If we want to outsource, what percentage should we outsource? What services should we keep in-house? So what is the benefit of in-house services? Organization retain direct and complete control. If you want to be in charge, that's where we keep the service in-house. No conflict of loyalty or passive conflict of loyalty between the client, the employer, and the contractor. What this one is saying that if the job is, okay, for example, let's say it's an AC services. If I'm giving my AC services to a contractor, there's possibility that the staff that are managing my AC, who are the contractor staff, will be more loyal to the contractor, which means they'll be trying as much as possible to make more money for the contractor. You'll be shocked to find out there are some contractors that you give your job to, and their staff will deliberately sabotage your assets, in such a way that you'll be able to call them to come and repair. I remember, I think when I started facility management newly, I was talking to a colleague of mine. I was working with another company. The company was the facility management, and they were managing, I think, Diamond Bank or what have you back then. And the guy said to me, he said, anytime they are hungry and they are broke, there's no money, they'll just go to where they have maybe a pipe, a water pipe, they'll go and bust it. Then they'll write to the client that, there's a leaking pipe, or we need so amount of money to fix it. What they are doing there is they're sabotaging the client. And that leads to what we call conflict of loyalty. But if I'm an in-house staff, there's likelihood I will not go and sabotage my company, or in the name of, oh, I'm looking for extra cash or something like that. So there are some of the reasons why some organizations try to keep some services internally. For example, now, if you are managing a bank, or you are working as a facility manager in a bank, and there are some certain services you will want to outsource. For example, your CCTV, your security, the CCTV aspect of your security, whatever, you probably want to give it to your staff so that when they see something, they can flag it. There are some certain aspects of your services that you prefer to have internal staff to manage, just to manage conflict of loyalty. What are the limitations of in-house services? Management is unlikely to be knowledgeable. Yeah, and that's one of the things you probably experience in organization. You discover that probably you have been employed as a facility manager, and you have maybe a top management that you are reporting to. You discover that when you start, if it's an organization that have not probably done FM, or they don't have a lot of experience in facility management, the first few months in those organizations, it will look as if there's a lot of friction, because you are coming from a knowledgeable area into an organization that have little or no knowledge about facility management. So, if a facility company like that, if a company like that decided to insource their facility management services, they are going to suffer, because the management knowledge with respect to different managerial information about facility management will be lacking. Specialist training is unlikely to be available. Yes, if you want to do in-house services, which means you need to employ every kind of trade to ensure that you're able to perform the facility management service, right? You want to get a plumber, a carpenter, a welder, a this, a that, and stuff like that. And you might not be able to have that internally, right? Work may be carried out when they are core business, yes, right? Because, oh, I have a facility, I have an in-house staff that will resume by 8 and close by 5 o'clock, like every other staff in my company. Which means if there's a problem, you will have to solve that problem between the 8 a.m. in the morning and the 5 p.m. before it goes to work. You can't do after hours job. So that's why it's always very tricky for organizations to manage some of the critical aspects of their internal FM services. What carried out? Okay. Core business management. Okay, so what may be carried out when core business management and supervision is not on site? Yes, because it's either you carry out that job during working hour where you have your senior management or your supervisor, and if you can't do that, you want to do it you want to do them after work, which means the people that are supposed to supervise that work are likely not going to be around, which means the quality of the work will be in question. Recruitment and absence cover can be a major problem. Yes, if you have an organization where they're trying to do their internal FM and they have plumbers, electricians, and the stuff and the like in-house. Now, one of the problems they are going to face, they are likely going to have maybe one cleaner, one plumber, one electrician. So what happens if suddenly your electrician falls sick and is not available for work, which means until he's able to recover, you will not have electrician on ground. And it will not be easy for you to quickly recruit another electrician to cover for the one that is sick, right? And if you say, oh, I want to plan ahead because of that, I want to have two staff for one job. That means I will spend it unnecessary money. But if I probably outsource the service, which means the client is providing me an electrician, which means if the electrician they supply me to my site is probably ill, they are obligated to look for replacement at the shortest possible time. And I'm not going to pay an extra penny, all right, for that. Which means I am going to pay just I'm going to pay a single amount of money to the organization, and they must ensure that there's provision of the needed service on my site at any given point in time. It's none of my business if one of their staff have an accident, for example, is ill or something happened. It's none of my business. I have a standing contract with them. They said they are going to provide so number of technician on site, which means they have to provide it, which means, so it's most of those facility management companies, because they have a lot of outstanding contract, they can easily reorganize their internal structure, deploy private technician from one side to quickly come and cover in another side while they sort out their internal issues. Going forward, reason for outsourcing, like I said, why do we outsource? Why do we need to give our internal services to people? To reduce health count. I said earlier on, for an organization, we might decide that we want to get 2 people so that if one of them is not available, another person will cover for it if we want to run internal service. But if you outsource it, we don't need to get 2 people. We just tell the client to provide 1 person at every given point in time. Who the person is, we don't really care. Just make sure that there's 1 technician on site and we pay for that particular technician. So that will reduce what we call head count, and invariably it will reduce cost. Then it will allow the organization to focus on their core business. That is to say, if I'm running a banking business, for example, if I outsource my facility management services to a third party, which means as a bank, I'm not supposed to bother with facility services. I can focus on more banking services, and as such, I can make more money. Buying in the provider core business, acquire expertise not available in the in-house, access to expertise, improve resource flexibility, improve cost flexibility, improve career opportunity for facility staff, access to investment or system that will require capital that cannot be justified in the host organization, free up management time to focus on strategic issues and planning. So those are just key benefits of outsourcing some of your internal services. What are the stages you need to carry out when you're trying to outsource? One of the key things is to define the objective and the key attribute of the service required. I have said this over and over and over again when we're trying to define what procurement process of procurement management is all about. I said before you can go out and say, oh, we want to buy these services or we want to buy this product, it is very important for you to clearly define what exactly do we want to buy? Why do you want to buy? What is the benefit of these services or this item to the organization? What is the value we are trying to extract from this? So when you kind of have a clearer understanding of what you want, and you can go ahead to document everything A to Z, then you'll be able to identify special demand or uniqueness of service, what exactly it is that you want, whatever. Then you can be able to identify the high priority services. When you do this kind of analysis, documentation or whatever, you'll be able to fish out those services you feel they are not really core. Because sometimes when you say, oh, you come to yourself and say, okay, what do people need? A lot of people will say a lot of things. Oh, we want this, we want microwave, we want AC, we want this, we want that. Now, when you sit down as a procurement person or as a facility person, you can take all this information that you fill down. What exactly is the demand organization trying to achieve? Out of all these services, catering services, maybe logistics services, mailing services, and the likes, and the security services, which of these services has a key impact on the organization that we can focus on? What are the risks associated with it? So when you do those analysis, you'll be able to identify services that have high priority. You're able to identify the risks associated with those services. And if you want to assess it out, what are the risks associated with assessing such services out? You can now do your risk analysis, try to mitigate it. And because of that, you have a clearer understanding when you are going out towards the bidding process. Also, you have to consider the flexibility and variability in demands, right? You might have a demand, and because of the nature of your demand organization core businesses, some of those demanding might change over time. You have to put that into consideration. You have to consider management implication. You have to consider appropriate bid evaluation criteria. Like I said, when you are performing procurement process, I need people to come and submit quotation to provide this particular service or to provide this particular product. I need to have a kind of evaluation criteria that when they submit those bids to me or those proposals, I'm going to use this criteria to know which of these contractor or service provider have a grand understanding of what I'm trying to achieve, right? And which of them is able to provide me a service that gives me a better value for money. It is very important to understand that when you are trying to do this evaluation, you are looking at soft measure, hard measure. When you are talking about soft measures, you are looking at the quality of what they're trying to provide. But looking at hard services, you are looking at those tangible benefits you are trying to tap from that. Then you are doing what they call cost comparison. Then you'll be able to know most of the time it's not when you have a bid, you just don't look at the cost. Oh, it's 2 naira. That one is 10 naira. Let me throw away the 10 naira. Let me just focus on the 2 naira. You have to look at what exactly is the 2 naira providing that the 10 naira, or what exactly is the 10 naira providing that the 2 naira is not providing. Why is the 2 naira, why is the bid for the 2 naira that low compared to the 10 naira? Sometimes you discover a person that has the lowest bid. The reason why they have the lowest bid is because they did not understand your requirements. So because of that, they have underquote. And that's the reason most organizations say when you want to quote, at least at a minimum, ask 3 vendors to quote for the same stuff. If you have followed the laid down rule of procurement process, ensure that 3 of them have the right information, right? 3 of them have the right clear understanding of whatever the entire the requirement of the organization. When 3 of them quotes, there's likelihood that the price variation from the 3 of them will not be that different. So if I have 3 bids, one is say is 10 naira, one say is 2 naira, then I'm seeing another one that is 4 naira, right? I probably be thinking the one with 10 naira doesn't know what he's talking about. Or probably I have 10 naira, I have maybe 8 naira, then I'm seeing 2 naira. There's likelihood the one with 2 naira does not know what he's talking about. So understanding that price alone is not the only yardstick or the only criteria that you can use when you are evaluating your bid. So moving forward, so process flow, supplier list, tender, whatever. So yeah, we are trying to just explain what a typical procurement process look like. And I've said it before, identify the need. I've said it before time. You have to understand what the organization is trying to achieve. You have to prepare the request. When you're talking about preparing the request, means that you have to prepare the criteria, you have to prepare the requirements. What if somebody is trying to provide the service, what are the things you are looking for? You have to finalize the request and submit to the procurement, right? This particular process is assuming that you have an organized procurement department in your organization, and you as a facility manager, you are trying to request for a service, and because of that, you are preparing your documentation to submit to procurement for them to carry out the procurement process. Then you have to do supply market analysis. It's not just enough for me to say, oh, I want to buy an AC, 3 horsepower, maybe Toshiba AC for that, all right? And I say, okay, go and look for a vendor to supply me, without first going to the market to say, okay, how much is Toshiba AC 2 horsepower, right? Where can I get it? What is the distance from the market to the supply point? What is the likely cost implication? So if you have done this particular analysis, this analysis will let you draw up what we call the initial contracts, right? All right. Once you have done that, you can review the request, and then you now ask people to solicit. You now ask people to bid based on the requirement and the initial contract you have, whatever. You ask people to submit tender, to submit their bid and quotation for you to evaluate. So because I have gone to the market, I have discovered that, oh, 2 horsepower of AC is around maybe 150,000 naira in Dimeta, maybe around 170,000 naira in Yaba, and maybe I can get it in Ibadan for like 150K, right? I have 3 price targets, which means I know that the real price will be somewhere within 150 and probably 170. Which means when people are giving me quotation, and I'm seeing somebody quoting 300,000 for the same piece of equipment, I know that this person is trying to scam the organization. Then when the various contractor or suppliers submit their bid for that particular service, you can evaluate, and after the evaluation, you are going to pick one particular vendor. In some cases, you pick more than one vendor. For example, maybe after evaluating the bid, and I feel, oh, the service can be split into 2. I can give half of it to one vendor. I can give the other one to another vendor based on your. So those are decisions you can make during your evaluation, the evaluation procedure, and finally you award the contract. During the procurement process, there's something we call supplier pre-tender qualification exercise. What this one is all about is, in most organizations, we have what we call supplier list. Supplier lists are lists of service providers that we have probably evaluated probably in the past, right? And we have certified that these people are competent to provide XY services. For example, now, if I'm running a facility management system where we are trying to manage it internally, right? But still, there are some services we do not have internal staff to manage. For example, AC system, for example, and I have an AC vendor that I probably asked to submit their maybe company profile and some other maybe financial information to see how well they are doing. And based on that, I felt, oh, these people can deliver AC services, those kind of whatever. I'll put them under our what we call vendor list. So tomorrow, if I have an AC issue, the supplier list is where I will go to. I won't need to go through the procurement process again because I've done it earlier on. I'll just call, Baba Mutiu for AC. Please, so our AC has issue. Please come tomorrow. Come and help us to fix it. I don't need to do any procurement, and I don't need to go through any procurement process because I have do what we call pre-qualification for that vendor. So when we are doing pre-qualification, we say the purpose is to measure each supplier competency, technical ability, and financial stability. One of the things you will experience, especially when you use all those roadside technicians that you quickly call, if you have had issue where you need you needed to repair maybe an electrical issue in your house, and you went to go and call a roadside electrician. You know, after he comes and he analyzes everything in your hands, oh, okay, is the switchboard that is bad or is the fuse that is bad? The next thing is, okay, give me money, make I go buy them. Right? Because as far as you say, don't you have money in your hand? Go and buy it. When you fix everything, I will pay you. So, guy, I no get cash. I know I broke. Just give me, I go quickly run, go buy and come. You get when you are running a business, it's a different ball game entirely. Most organizations do what they call 30 days payment cycle. That is to say, if you deliver a service or goods to them today, it will take 30 days before they pay you. So if you are kind of running that kind of system, or some do 15 days, if you are kind of running that kind of system, you want to ensure that your vendors they are financially stable and they have enough money to be able to carry out the services you have called them to carry out without you paying them, and they are able to deliver. So that's one of the things we do during pre-qualification exercise. You can do pre-qualification exercise when you are in need of a service and you are carrying out your normal procurement process in order to determine what the organization needs and who can deliver that service. Sometimes you can carry out your procurement pre-qualification or pre-tender exercise to build up what we call a vendor database, so that in the future, when we need a particular service, we know which vendor to call. So in doing that, you will need the companies to submit what we call tender legal identity, which is, are they registered? Are they registered with CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission? Who is the owner of the company? Hope he's not a politician. You want to ensure that the vendor has enough money in their bank account, which means, because if a vendor does not have 1 million, right, it's not possible for me to give them a job of 1 million. They won't have money. They will run into problems. That's why most organizations, when they ask vendors to bid for something or submit their proposal or submit their company profile that they want to enroll them, most of them will say, okay, submit your audited financial account for last year, so that we want to see how money was flowing in and how money was flowing out. I want to know the current financial standing of the organization. Apart from that, you want to know the level of insurance. There's what we call indebtedness, where a company will insure. So if a company wants to probably perform a service for me, they are going to insure against that service in case, so that when they mess up, insurance will pay me for their mess. So you want to know if the company has enough insurance coverage. Then you want to tell their technical competency, which may be established through talking. Oh, you have worked with some we say submit 3 clients you have worked with in the past, so that we can reach out to those clients. So what do you think about supplier XYZ? Are they good? What kind of service? They say they have done XYZ service to them. Is it true? The service? I can get that information. Some you can probably ask your past clients to write a cover letter or a letter of introduction for you, so that you give to your prospective new clients. You also want to know the number of contracts, the number of the staff level, the extent of subcontracting, health record. You don't want to give jobs to companies that are so oversized when it comes to health and safety. They don't care. You want to know their insurance claim. You want to know if they have legal issues surrounding the organization. You want to know about industrial relationships, evidence of formalized procedures and systems. What we are talking about here is I want to know if I want to give a facility management contract to a company, I want to see their internal system. How did they carry out facility management? Did they have what they call SOP, standard operating procedure? How does the SOP look like? How are they carrying out? What is their quality policy? What is their health and safety policies, and the likes? You want to know their quality assurance procedure, and so all this information will let you give you an indication that this particular contractor will be able to deliver at the end of the day. So moving forward, I've talked about approved supplier list. Why do we need approved supplier list? Useful where there is a regular need for a similar type of work. I'm always servicing my AC, right? So I have an AC vendor in my supplier list. Most of the hard work in the selecting suitable supplier is done only once. Like I said, when you want to develop, when you are doing this pre-qualification, you are doing them in such a way that you have a database of supplier you can always call up on when you have a need without going through the procurement process again. Disadvantage is the list of suppliers might be continuously updated to ensure accuracy of information. Facility manager may directly contact supplier. Respondents should be requested to provide specific relevant pre-qualification information, which is what we actually discussed here. Moving forward, invitation to tender. These are kind of information. For example, if you read some newspaper, you see some pages where you say invitation to tender. Maybe NMPC is looking for companies that can provide maybe catering services for so number of staff or so whatever. That is most of the time is always announced to the public, and companies are encouraged to apply, right? So after a short listing, a limited number of suppliers should be invited to tender, right? Suppliers should submit their tender questionnaire supporting documentation by a certain time and date. Any submission should not be accepted beyond that specified deadline. Tender should be kept in a sealed and locked way, and this confidentiality is required for all major contracts. Bid award criteria. How do we evaluate bids? Oh, fine. You have done your analysis, you have come up with your draft contract and the requirements. You have announced that people should come and submit their tender to bid for your services. They have bidded for your service. How do you select the best contractor for the job? There are three categories of things you need to look out for when you're trying to select or award your contract. One, I've said it before, the lowest responsive bid. Like I said initially, I said there are situations where you have three contractors and you are bidding for job. One are bidded 20 naira, right? To the other one bidded 10 naira, one bidded 12 naira. Are you getting my point? Okay, one bidded 11 naira, 12 naira, one bidded 10 naira, right? By virtue of that, there's this discrepancy. By virtue of this lower responsive bid, I probably want to go for 10 naira. But if I consider my other criteria, maybe 12 naira might actually be the right person. But in this particular lower responsive bid, we assume that all the people that bidded for that job are equally qualified to carry out the job, right? They have the technical capacity, the financial capacity, and the experience to deliver on the job. If we assume that, we can go for the lowest responsive bid, which means we can go for 10 naira and leave 20 naira and 12 naira alone. The other criteria is evaluate the best value for money. Yeah, what we are talking about here, we are not looking at the lowest bid. We are looking at, so in this particular kind of bid, we usually use this particular type of bid when we don't have a deep understanding of exactly what, of how we know what we want, we know the requirements of what we want, but we don't understand how that can be achieved. So we know what, but we don't know how. So in that situation, we needed the contractor to provide the how. How are you going to achieve it? So based on this, you are going to look at the how proposal of each contractor and how that translates to our requirements. So in this kind of view, we are basing on what are they trying to provide, what value will that provision provide to us as a company. So based on evaluation of technical criteria as well as bid price, vendors are rated against a floor. European public sector rule allow for competitive negotiation with a very short list of bidders, provided with the highest technical quality, often selected on technical merit. Final, so the last one is what we call unique services. Unique services is deployed where, for example, we have a chiller system from Daikin that we want to service. Invariably, we can't use lower responsive bidder because I won't have Daikin, Sony, maybe Toshiba to come and quote for a Daikin chiller system. It doesn't make sense. I have to call Daikin. In that particular material is a unique service, so I'm going to use a unique service approach in selecting the vendor. The vendor I'm selecting is Daikin. Can I be maybe a Daikin themselves, or maybe a Daikin representative company that Daikin are probably be licensed to carry out the respective maintenance activities. At this moment, let's just take like 5 minutes break. We'll be back. Other aspect of it. Somebody drop a question on the chat box. So before we continue further, I would like to quickly address the question. Let me see. Okay, Chinere. Is Chinere on this call? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, kindly unmute and just confirm that you can hear me, please. Hello, Chinere. I would like to answer the question once she confirms she can hear me. So we'll just continue. Once she confirms that she can hear me, I'll probably take 1 or 2 minutes to quickly just explain or address her question. I don't want to answer the question and she'll probably miss out from the question. So we'll probably just proceed further. Can you just confirm that you can you can all hear me and you are back?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right,
Yes,
thank you
we can.
very much. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so module 3, contract, basic element and type. While explaining procurement, we have mentioned a lot about contracting and the likes and the likes and the likes. Contracting is not procurement, right? Contract is a tool that is defined the terms of relationship and interaction involved in the procurement of a product or services from an external provider, right? It helps to ensure regulatory compliance, reputational risk management, and effective control, right? Contract is more like a tool where we can use to show that Mr. A and Mr. B have come to an agreement to do X, Y, Z, right? Once there's no that, when that contracting aspect element is not in your procurement, there's no agreement. Anybody can do anything or anybody cannot do anything. Now, in contract, for a contract element to be valid, there must be mutual agreement. That is, the two parties involved must have an agreement, meeting of mind, an express or an implied agreement. Like Mr. Paul would always say, that if you have an AC technician, or probably you have a car, and every morning you have maybe a boy that comes to your house in the morning, fetch water, clean your entire car, and your mind, your church mind say, this a good boy. He's doing it for free, right? You do not have it at the back of your mind that this guy that is doing this thing, is expecting your guy to just give him maybe a small change and say, okay, you to use it to buy rice this morning, right? If somebody do something for you and you did not stop the person, right, it means you have agreed. It's called implied agreement. And that's one of the what they call it. That's one of the, okay, in the law court, let's assume I have a piece of land. I remember back then when I was in 100 level, I had some law students in my room back in the day. And we have a lot of argument between legal issue and no legal issue. And they make me to understand that if I have a piece of land, and one day I discovered that somebody is building a house on my piece of land, and I'm aware, and I waited for the person to start the foundation, build to completion. After the person finished building the house, then and I went to them and said, no, you have built on my land. And I said, oh, I will take you to court. If we go to the law court, I will not win. Because the court will ask me, what was I doing when he did the foundation, when he erected the wall, until he finished and erected the roof, before I now come forward and say, I want, because the fact that I kept quiet, I never said anything. When I know that what the person is doing, I am not in agreement to it. The fact that I kept quiet means that I have explicitly agreed to the person to take ownership of my land. So that's why I say, when we talk about mutual agreement, it can either be expressly written down in a written. When you say written down, means that it was express agreement. That is to say, there's a black and white documentation. But if there's no black and white documentation, we just agree in our mind. For example, maybe there's a young lady, there's this fine gentleman that's always coming to tell you, I love you, I do this, taking it out, buying you gift. You know in your own mind of a mind that you do not want this guy, right? You are collecting everything. In a legal term, there's an implied agreement. Maybe a young guy, you have this fine lady that have shown indication that she's in love with you, and she always comes to your house to, do all those fine dish. You do not tell her, say, Ungazi, I no come my house, right? Yes, you are eating Ngozi vegetable and the likes. In the legal terms, you have agreed by implied agreement. So as a facility manager, I'm trying to use this basic illustration to let us understand some of this stuff. You have a contractor that is coming to perform a job in your facility, right? There's no agreement, and the contractor went ahead to do something, and you as a facility manager, you know your company is not going to pay for that facility. You keep quiet. In fact, you sign job completion certificate. Then tomorrow the client now come and tender invoice for payment. And I say, no, I did not tell you we are paying for this. Oga, you did not tell me you are not going to pay for it, and you never stopped me. So pay up, please. Because if they drag you to court, they will win. Because the fact that you fail to stop them, or you fail to clarify, and you have gone ahead, they are going to pay. There's something we call consideration of exchange. I think they use it a lot in legal terms. Quid pro quo, right? Which means that if we extend something, it doesn't necessarily mean that the two parties have to exchange something per se. One person might give something, while the other person has collected it. There's an exchange of something. That means there's an agreement. And that's why I think traditionally, I think in Nigeria, most part of the country, especially in the Yoruba setting, where when you want to probably get married to a lady, you probably go to their house, and there will be you probably take a token there, the family is going to probably accept those tokens as a show of, okay, oh, you have come to seek our daughter's hand in marriage. So because of that, we have bring all these assorted fruit and whatever to show our interest. If the family accepts those gifts, it means that they have accepted to your proposal to their daughter. So if tomorrow they change their mind, they are expected to return whatever they have accepted. And that's why in facility management, it's very, very important as a facility manager not to accept gifts or favors from your service provider, because once you accept stuff like that, they will expect you to do them a favor in the future, and it is implied, right? So it's very important for you to understand some of these considerations or some of these elements of contracting. There's something we call competent parties. Whoever signs must have legal authority and capacity to understand the terms in the contracts, right? Imagine you want to sign a contract, for example, or somebody wants to sign a contract for you. Then they now put a bottle of anything beside the contract paper while they are signing it. Then they not unknowingly to you, they snap the picture. If tomorrow, you know that tomorrow they can go to court and deny signing that contract. And when you say, but you signed it, they say, Oga George, see picture. I was drunk when I was signing this. Meaning that I was not in my full senses. And because of that, that legal document, that contract become void. Because according to the legal terms, somebody that is drunk does not have the mental capacity to understand the written contract. So it's not a competent party sign a contract. We also talked about proper subject matter. We can't have a contract for prostitution, or a contract for prostitution service, or a contract for Yahoo service, or a contract to small good drugs, right? Those are illegal activities. They are not even, they are activities that are not even recognized by the state as a legal activity. So any contract you signed or entered to, it is not recognized by the law. In fact, you'll even be arrested. Imagine I went to court that I want to sue Mr. A because we had an agreement that is going to supply me 20 kilos of cocaine. I'm quite sure NDLEA will start knocking on my office tomorrow. You get? So if there's an agreement, maybe it's an under-G agreement, right? It's not something you can enforce in a legal law court. Mutual right to remedy. In every contract, each party should have equal right to remedy a breach of terms. For example, if both of us enter into a contract, there must be a clause in the contract that says if party A breach this particular contract term, party B have the right for redress, or party B will be entitled to XYZ. Are you getting my point? So for a valid contract, the two parties must have mutual right to remedy, right? If one party fails to meet their own end of the agreement, party B can probably go to court to ask for redress. Agreement to enter into a contract, party must demonstrate that the negotiation has ended and agreement has been reached when the contract is signed. So in an express contract, when you finish negotiation and everybody, whatever, you normally will sign an agreement. When you sign the agreement, it means that I, Mr. So of so company, is in agreement with the terms and conditions of this contract. So in a formal setting, what we call the gentleman agreement, the two parties are going to shake hands, meaning that we have agreed, right? Those are kind of, in fact, if you watch a lot of Nollywood movies, you probably seen a lot of situations where maybe the actors and the boss, or the way we call it, maybe after going for some negotiation, will now shake their hands. Okay, we will not kill each other again. Okay, no shoot me gun, no shoot me gun. I don't agree. That's a gentleman agreement. It's a form of agreement. It's a form of contract too, although informal. Now, moving forward. Types of FM contract. As an FM, we have talked about contract procurement. What type of contract should you be expecting as an FM professional, right? So we have different type of, we have what we call fixed price. Fixed price FM contract. Fixed price means that the price of the contract is fixed. It doesn't matter whatever. So you probably use this kind of contract when you are doing what we call a bundled service. Come and perform facility management services. You are going to perform X, Y, Z, and I'm going to pay you 20 million per annum. I do not care if you are using 20 people or 10 people, right? All I want, these are all the services I want. How you do it is none of my business. If I'm paying you 20,000 naira, I'm paying 20 million naira per year for that service. It's fixed. You can't come back and tell me the money is not enough, right? We use this fixed approach to in projects. So I want to perform, maybe I want to renovate this building. My total is 5 million. How you do it, what you buy is your head. Just deliver it in this quality with this feature, 5 million. Gas here, no more, no less. We have what we call cost reimbursement. Cost reimbursement is popular in FM where you have the service provider to go and fix a particular, to carry out a particular service at a particular agreed rate, but you are not paying that money at that time. You are not paying upfront. The client is going to use their money to go and fix it. At the end of the day, they are going to submit an invoice and probably get paid in 15 or 30 days, depending on your payments, on your payment terms. For those of you that probably used to procurement process, you will have heard about purchase order or LPOs and stuff like that. In the cost reimbursement system, those are kind of contract where you issue LPO. So when you give LPO to your service provider, that LPO is more like a kind of instruction. It's more like an instruction to.
Well, Bukola, let you give me the food. Bukola is in pick, and I'm in the lecture.
Can you please mute your mic, please? Thank you. So when you give an LPO to your contractor, that LPO is a legal binding between yourself and the contractor saying, go and do this service. We will pay you so amount by so dates. In fact, interestingly, your contractor can take that LPO, go to the bank and use it to borrow money to do your job. Once a bank or a lending entity sees an LPO from a recognized company, they are likely going to lend whoever is coming to borrow money, whatever. Although some people will say it's not advisable. But that LPO is a legal document that binds you and the contractor. And if the contractor has fulfilled his own portion of the agreement, that is, he has delivered the service or product, and your internal staff has confirmed received, you are obligated to pay the client. Sorry, you are obligated to pay the contractor. Because in your LPO, you will have stated the terms and conditions, the quality, the quantity, and everything. So if this person has met all the requirements and your people have signed, received, no problem, goods okay, they will submit an invoice to claim their money as at the end of providing the service. We have what we call indefinite delivery quantity line item. This particular one is, you probably use it when It's a type of contract used in facility management where we say, you say to a vendor, I've given you a contract of 20 million, but that 20 million, you are not giving them the 20 million. The 20 million naira is still from you, from your end, but you have agreed on maybe a series of items you want them to deliver, but they are not delivering the item at once, right? So you can say, okay, tomorrow, bring 6 bags of cement, right? They will bring the 6 bags of cement. From that 20 million that they have approved, you pay them out of it. So in this kind of a kind of contract, you continuously, so you can give. So in that kind of arrangement, you still use some organizations, you use what they call LPO. You give a 20 million LPO to the client. Then you will not be, the client will not be, the contractor will not be invoicing you based on the amount of goods and services, right? You have received. Are you getting my point now? So for example, in construction, they use this a lot in construction. Now, when you want to construct and they say, they have awarded a contract of, let's say they have awarded a contract of 100 million to an organization, maybe to do a classroom construction. It does not mean that the company will give them 100 million and say, go and construct. No. What is simply saying that we have allocated 100 million, we have set aside 100 million for this project. Are you getting my point? So at every stage of the project, we will call for that order. That is to say, I say, okay, out of this 100, supply 100 bags of cement. When you supply 100 bags of cement, you deliver, you provide your invoice. I will pay from that 100 million. I will pay for that 100 bags of cement. When you say, supply me iron rod, you supply me iron rod, I will pay for that iron rod, right? That's the kind of whatever. You can end up spending all the money, or you might end up spending less, depending, because the fact that I said I want 500,000 or 500 million for you to supply a lot of stuff continuously, I might choose to use another person if I want, right? Because the way the contract is structured, I am not bounded to use you. I might change my mind, right? There's no legal responsibility that says, even though I've said, oh, it's 20 million, I can change. I don't want to buy cement from you. There's nothing you can do. There's what we call national buy. National buy is also a type of contract. Mostly it's used for organizations that have multiple locations, where maybe at the head office, they have a contract with a vendor to supply maybe water dispensers to all their locations, right? The procurement services or the procurement decision is carried out from one location and it is distributed to many locations. We have what we call an open book contract. An open book contract means that it's similar to cost reimbursement, but the difference is that when you go and buy stuff, right, you have to bring invoice. So if I go and buy AC for my client now, I have to bring the invoice from the market to show to them that this AC that I said I bought for 150, I actually bought it for 150. I will show them, right? After I've showed them, maybe based on when we are negotiating it, I say whenever I buy something, I'm going to charge 10% on that, 10% markup. That's where markup comes in, 10% markup. So they will check the invoice, the invoice I received from the market and calculate their 10%, then they will not reimburse me. But in the cost reimbursement, the difference between the open book and the cost, in the cost reimbursement, I don't need to show them the invoice. If I tell them I spent 10 naira, I spent 10 naira, it's none of their business. If I have spent 5 naira, it's none of, I don't need to show them my book. I don't need to show how much I spent. But in the open book arrangement, you have to show them exactly how you spend. So if you are going to make a profit on that, it will be an agreed percentage between you and the customer. Then we have what we call the labor hour or time and material FM contract. This is the one you use for your roadside technician. For example, I call Papa Mutiu to quickly come and help me service my AC. When he finish, I pay him. That's what we call labor hour and time and material kind of facility management contract. This kind of contract, you do not necessarily have a written contract. It's just implied, or something is verbally expressed, or probably give you a written quotation and you take it and use it to process the money. So let's quickly go forward. Contracting negotiation guidelines. It's straightforward. Know when you need to sign a piece of paper and when you don't. Know what you are worth before negotiating starts. Decide the client before you begin negotiating with them. You can negotiate more than just money. Everything is not about money. Be reasonable, listen to potential clients' needs, communicate the care and guide your emotion. Don't be emotional when you are negotiating. Don't be afraid to negotiate. Don't rush. And it's not about winning or losing. It's about winning and winning. Variation to contract terms. It is important in contract to include a provision that any change made to the contract are ineffective unless made in written and signed by or on behalf of both parties. This is known as variation clause, and it's intended to prevent informal or invariable oral variation. We have signed contract and the client comes to me and says, what if we change it to white? It's black, we agreed in the written contract, but if you want us to change to white, go and write to us formally. We will change it. Not that somebody say, change it to white. They will not change it to white. They will not come to me and say, but it's black I want now. You say, no, but guy, you came yesterday and said we should change it to white. I say, what is written in your contract? Is it not black? You say it's black, but you said we should change it to what my return. You say, where is the written document? Then you are in soup. So it is very important. It is very important. So it's very important that we follow we include what we call variation clause inside our contract document. Can you please mute your mic, please? Performance management. So like I said earlier on, the reason why we do procurement process is also to help us manage or to measure the performance of the procurement process and contracts that we are trying to put out there. Now, it is very important when we are trying to measure the performance. There's something we call communication and reporting. Effective communication and reporting helps clients to understand their stakeholder interests and needs for sustainability. I talked about sustainability in the early when we started this lecture initially. Improve relationship between clients, build client support for achieving the FM objective. Regular communication include individual quarterly meeting, monthly conference call open to all clients on the current market event, current performance meeting, annual financial performance or review meeting. What do you monitor? You monitor the actual progress against work schedule, fulfillment of time frame and adherence to milestone, fulfillment of quality and quantity objective, conformance to specification, conformance to baseline operational performance metrics, performance to service and quality levels outlined within the contracts, conformance to standards, inspection, feedback report, audit, observation, report card, test, and meetings. So those are things, but when you are building your contract, most of these things will have been built into your contract. So based on that, you can just use that to build your performance monitoring metrics, and you can use it to monitor your contracts as you progress with the contract implementation. What are the techniques? Ensure that there are sufficient funds to pay for all the service rendered as required by the contract. Ensure invoices are paid consistent with most favorable terms. Identify low spending levels and reassignment of funds if appropriate. Ensure vendor payments are commensurate with the level of goods and services received, right? Don't overpay, don't underpay. Review vendors' invoices and follow organization or departmental standard procedure. for processing payments. If your vendor has finished doing a job, ensure you process their payment promptly, because when your vendor is happy, they do your job. Don't sit down on people's invoice, for God's sake. They need to pay salary. So it is very important as facility management professional, if you have vendor working for you and there's a contract term and they are supposed to be paid, immediately they finish providing the service and you have confirmed everything is in good, whatever, process their document and send the account for payment. How often do you monitor? Frequently enough, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, or by special arrangement. Confirm that the condition of contract are certified and actually the actual costs are tracked. Any discrepancy in the quality or timeliness of work can be quickly addressed and resolved. Situation in which the contractor requires unanticipated support or assets can be arranged to minimize negative impact. If somebody wants to carry a contract in your organization and you need maybe special access to a particular region that is not really normally accessible, ensure that you make adequate provision before the time they will come for those whatever, to ensure that the necessary permission or approval have been gotten for the necessary access, so that it will not affect the execution or implementation of such contract. Evaluating performance. The primary goal of performance evaluation system are to provide an adequate measurement of service delivery, to obtain a high level of quality and quantity in work produced. Steps to creating performance evaluation involve develop an evaluation form. Most of the time, you will have probably developed this when you are coming up with your contract, when you are doing your, you are trying to gather requirements, information, try to understand what service needed in the organization, what and how, and probably how the service needs to be delivered and the like. Identify the performance measure, set the item for feedback, create disciplinary and termination procedure. Most of this will have been built into your contract. Set an evaluation schedule, right? An evaluation schedule should also be built into your contract. So you're aware that yourself and the contractor must agree on how often you are going to sit down to evaluate the performance of the contract, so that you can, at the end of the day, you're like, oh, it's because it's not like my face now. That's why he's marking us down. Point to note when setting performance measurement. Before performance measurement can be put in place, output specification must be established. A good understanding of organization requirement is essential. The overall performance of a service provider can be determined by monitoring conformance to regulatory regulations and standards, quality related and performance related target for service delivery, expenditure target, time related target, interaction between customer and service provider. Module 5, we talked about facility service contract. I initially talked about what we call output specification. So here we are going to look what is output specification, what is input specification for facility management contract. Input specification is talking about a simple example is if I want to carry out a janitorial service and I ask a company to provide a janitorial service for me, and I specifically tell them how often they should clean the table, how often they should sweep the floor, how many times they should flush the toilet. You know, I am telling them the how, right? That kind of specification is what we call input specification facility management contract. But if I want to do a janitorial service and I say, you know what, I just want this place to be sparkling clean. I don't want dust. I don't want stain. I want everything to be neat. I don't want smelling. I don't want foul odor. I want this place to be scenting nice, to be smelling nice, and the fragrance will be whatever. What I am doing is output specification. What I'm simply telling the contractor is say, at the end of this service, this is what I am looking for. This is the what I want to get, right? The how, decide the how. You figure out how to make this place dust free, how to make it stain free, how to make it that it doesn't have foul odor. That is what we call output specification. Client set, so as we have here, you say, client set out in detail the exact service to be performed by the contractor in a prescriptive fashion. Describe exactly how you want them to clean, how you want them to sweep is what we call input specification. Output specification, client would not prescribe how. The contractor is to achieve the performance standard set out in the specification. Contractor will be expected to come up with their own proposal for how to achieve the delivery. Facility management contract. What is the service contract? An agreement for the performance of various labor-oriented services funded on a periodic basis, either quarterly, biannually, or annually. Some can do multi-year. I've seen multi-year contract too. What is the service specification? A part of a service contract typically include in a separate document developed and agreed upon in order to clarify and give further details on expected service level and quality. So what is service level agreement, SLA? A part of a service contract where the level of service is formally defined. Service level, which is SLA, are negotiated agreement between the service provider, in-house or outsourced, and the customer. The service provider commits to deliver an agreed upon level of service. The level of service may be specified as target or minimum. Once defined, the level can serve as a benchmark. Expectation should be reasonable and realistic. Element and structure of SLA. What should be included in your SLA? States the business objectives to be achieved in the provision of service. Describe in detail the service deliverables and scope. Define the performance standards and the performance standard the customer expects. Provide an ongoing reporting mechanism for measuring the expected performance and standards. Provide mechanism for penalty and compensation. Provide a mechanism for review and change to the service level over the course of the contract. For some of you that are working as facility manager or facility management professional, managing a client site, you'll have been hearing about SLA. If people are not meeting your SLA, what they are simply saying that at the beginning of the contract, your organization agreed to provide certain services at a certain level of quality or quantity. So if you fail to meet that, you have said to breach your what you call your service level agreement. Most organizations usually use this service level agreement to kind of measure the performance of organization. For example, I can say maybe in a quarter, I will not have more than one escalation, meaning that we will perform our job in such a way that clients will not need to complain. So one client complains, we have violated our set SLA. Some organization will say, okay, we are managing our generator. We don't want to have more than 2 downtime in a month. So if you end up managing the generator and discover the generator failed 3 times in a month, you have failed your SLA. Fraud, conflict resolution, and closeout. Mitigation, segregation of duty shifting staff, proper authorization, repetitive bidding and tendering, documentation and record keeping, change under control and budgetary control. So what this is talking about is ways we can use to mitigate contract fraud. What is contract fraud? A contract fraud is an intentional deception made to gain an advantage or damage an individual. Variety of illegal acts, deceit, concealment, violation, to obtain money, property, service, to avoid payment or loss of service, secure personal or business advantage. Types of fraud: we have collision, when 2 or more contractors come together to defraud a client. We have price fixing. We have non-competitive pricing. We have irregularity during execution, payment for work that was not carried out. We have cartels too. So those are kind of fraud activities you can find in contracting. And ways to mitigate this is to segregate duties, shifting of staff. Maybe the staff that works in probably in security, you discover that they do a lot of rotational whatever that, and they're giving the probably when you have multiple locations that you're managing, you can rotate your staff around. You can have proper authorization. A lot of people will have authorization level that above that level they can't approve. You should have what we call competitive bidding and tendering. When you are doing your procurement process, ensure that there's a competition among your contractors. That's the best. That's how best you can get the best out of the procurement activity. Ensure that everything is documented and recorded. When there's a change order request, ensure that the process is controlled. We call it change management process. And there's also what we call budgetary control. When you set a budget, ensure that every spending stays within the budget, nothing goes outside the budget. Common alteration dispute resolution techniques. If there's problem, there's a disagreement between the client and the contractor, how do you resolve this dispute? We have what we call management escalation. This is to provide escalation to senior management in both parties. Often the first action to deal with issue. That is to say, there's an issue in your there's a conflict probably in the contract. You just have to escalate to senior management so that the senior management of your organization can talk to those their own senior management, probably have a meeting to resolve what the problem is. If they can't come to an agreement, they might probably contact a third party to mediate between both of them. The method in which parties reach a voluntary settlement within the help of a skilled facilitator, proceedings are confidential and private, may be binding or not. If mediator fails, then you go to arbitration, submission of dispute to one or more qualified and impartial person for a final and binding decision, right? Party control the range of issues and the scope of the relief to be awarded and many procedural aspects. Arbitration is more of a legal process where if escalation fails, mediation is more like an informal way of a third party coming to resolve the conflict. But if it fails, then you go to the formal way, which is arbitration, where whatever is decided during the arbitration is final, is binding. The party has to agree to it. But whatever is decided during the mediation, the party might not agree to it. And if that's why I say when mediation fails, it moves to arbitration, and whatever is decided at the arbitration, that's the end of it. I think we have what we call Arbitration Association of Nigeria, the collection of lawyers and some professionals that involves a lot. I think we find a lot of these in the real estate industry where probably there's dispute on land, there's dispute on project, and there's dispute between contractors and the likes and the likes. What is contract closeout? I've said it. The activities carried out at the end of a project to officially close the project is what we call contract closeout. The contract closeout occurs when a contract has met all the terms of the contract, all the administrative action has been completed, all disputes settled, final payment has been made. A checklist of a contract closeout, issue an interim contract completion statement, ensure disposition of classified material is complete contract audit, ensure prime contractor has settled subcontractor, complete price revision, review submit contractor final invoice and voucher, ensure final voucher has been paid, complete contract fund review and obligation and remit obligate excess fund. That is to say, a fund that was not used in the contract has to be returned back to the organization. And at the end of this, we have come to the end of the lecture. Thank you very much. Any question, conclusion, subtraction, multiplication, and division? Yes. So any question?
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My question is, when we started this training, you made mention of legal documents for like someone that want to do fumigation.
Yes.
So my question now is that does it mean that at every area or every local government that the service provider want to carry out that service, he will need to obtain a certificate from that particular local government at every point in time?
By God's grace.
Yay.
So your fumigation vendor does not have the legal right to fumigate all local governments. So if he needs to carry out a job, so what most fumigation vendor would do, if I know that most of my clients are in this particular region, maybe there are 6 local governments in that region. So what I will do, I'll go to each of those local governments and obtain their local government permit to carry out fumigation. I think the document lasts for 1 year and it's renewable every year. Once you collect that document, you have a license to fumigate as many clients within that region. So if you don't have that documentation, because at the end of the day, when they fumigate and they are giving you a job completion certificate for that fumigation, they will add a photocopy of their local government permit to it. So that if the health inspector comes and they check your certificate and they check the permit, they will know that this person have the permit to perform fumigation in that location.
But just to add to what you're saying, sir, some of them already registered with the Lagos state government, so there's no need getting another permit from the local government.
Well, in Ogun State, where I worked as of last year, all my fumigation has to obtain fumigation permit from their local government. And at the moment, I have a friend that is doing fumigation in Lagos. And based on the information I had from him, I think he was fumigating. There was a particular restaurant they were fumigating in one location. That same restaurant asked them to go and fumigate another location, another of their branch in another location, which is a different local government. They were asked to obtain a permit from the local government before they were allowed to fumigate. So I don't know the dynamic. Maybe it has changed now, but it is very important as a facility manager, find out what are the legal and statutory requirements needed for any service your vendor wants to perform, and ensure that they have the legal requirement or permits before carry out. If not, at the end of the day, it's going to bounce on your head, because when these people come to your whatever in their head, their blood is always hot. Before you know, they'll just bill you 100 million, 200 million. Go and bring it. You have violated section this of section this. Those people, when they come to your facility, you'll be surprised. They'll go and bring some law that you have never seen in your life, and you can't argue with them. I worked in the bank where we manage a lot of, I think I have about 30-man branches, and we deal on a regular basis with local government. You don't play with them because those guys can really mess you up. Any question? I'm seeing Kislin. I'm seeing.
Okay, sir. Kingsley. The first person really spoke my mind. I just had that as my first question. And,
okay.
So my second question is: at what level under procurement is the facility manager will handle procurement? I know the facility manager identifies the faults or brings up the job, calls in the contract, explains the details he wants and all that. At what level does the facility manager carry on the procurement?
So you don't, the facility manager is not expected to call in the contractor. The facility manager is supposed to document the entire requirements. The requirement, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, what are the criteria needed to evaluate your contractor, what exactly are you looking for? So you prepare those documentation and you give it to procurement. Procurement will not take that documentation and go to market, right? Maybe they go to market to first do market survey to have an idea what the pricing is. They're probably looking to their vendor list, and probably if they have done pre-qualification before then and they have a vendors list, they're probably going to their vendors list and probably send invitation to tender to some vendor and ask them, okay, based on this our requirement, can you please submit a quotation? They'll probably, when they submit that quotation, they might probably now call maybe the facility manager and some technical people in the company to kind of interview the various vendor, right? Then when they interview the various vendor, based on the evaluation criteria the facility manager have developed initially, you will now use that to evaluate the contractor. And probably in some organizations they have what they call bidding committee, right? The bidding committee will comprise of either the facility manager and some other professional in the organization, in such a way at the end of the day, they will not come up to decide which contractor they are giving the job to. That approach is kind of a fair process, because it will ensure that nobody is partial. But if in some small organizations, maybe your boss will just decide, or the procurement manager will decide, and some organizations they might defer back to the facility manager. But what is essential is that the facility manager during the documentation process will ensure that the entire requirement is well detailed and the evaluation criteria is well detailed. That even if it's not there, anybody can take your documentation and still perform the procurement process and get you the right person for the job.
Thank you, sir. Yes, you did. Yes, the third question is a scenario. I was under in-house FM. You mentioned in-house and outsourced FM.
Okay.
So this is a scenario. An in-house FM. There's a background noise. Is expected to come in to carry on services weekdays, and most time it usually comes to work on Saturdays that are not in his description of job. So now he's having that problem of him using his money out of the organization, using his money coming at a time he's not supposed to work, and he's now complaining because this is what is happening. He's now complaining and wants the organization to support, because it's not part of the initial negotiation that is going to be coming weekends and all that, because most of FM jobs, these are people who don't really understand.
So
his negotiation was weekdays, come in and make sure the office is okay, and it boils down to him coming every weekend. Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
So he now is now negotiating again with the organization that the job I initially agreed with is no longer what I'm saying. That in this scenario, the organization is refusing to support him, and he's also wanting to back out. So in this scenario, what do you advise the person should do?
So it's tricky. Like I said, when it comes to agreement,
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Kisley.
Yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
So agreement is agreement, and if you heard me clearly when I was talking initially, I said when you have an agreement, right? Agreement is in a contract agreement. Each party have the obligation to pull out of the contract at any given point in time when the other party violates the terms of contract. So if I have an agreement with someone and the person said, come every Wednesday to perform XYZ service, which means if the person called me on a Saturday, come outside the contract term, we will need to renegotiate. Are you getting my point now? So if he's not a full-time staff and he's maybe a contract staff, and there was an arrangement and say you are supposed to come on a particular number of days, the day they changed that arrangement was the day he was supposed to renegotiate the terms of contracts. Are you getting my point now? So if he has failed to negotiate at that point, well, it's still not bad. You still have to force them to the negotiation table. And if they are not going to negotiate, If he feels at the end of the day, continuation of that contract is not beneficiary to him, then he needs to pull out of the contract. But I wouldn't expect it to get to that point, because I would expect whoever the facility manager in-house should understand this very well and find a way to iron out and resolve that issue. A classic example I had was, I had a fumigation contract at some point. The fumigation vendor has done the fumigation, but we keep having a continuous fly. It was maybe during that particular time of the year, it was fly season. So the flies were crazy. So it wasn't peculiar to our site, and it was affecting the production. So I had a formal discussion with the contractor that they should do additional fumigation to help me, because this thing is causing a lot of damage to my work. So they agreed, and they came. Before he went to the market, bought some extra material. So after looking at how committed and how much he has spent, I decided to send an additional invoice of about, I think about 150K for the job, because he did it about 3 or 4 times. So I just calculated the rate at which he usually do fumigation for us, and I awarded him that job, right? When he got to my boss approved and agreed. But when he gets to the MD frowned against it. Why, who approved it? Who, whatever. But I was able to talk to the MD. I wrote a memo to explain the reason why I supported with a lot of documentation. Although he gave me a query, but he approved it at the end of the day, right? What I was able to achieve was I was able to save the company production, to avoid wastage in production because of contamination. At the end of the day, we saved a lot of money for the organization. At the end of the day, I was able to protect the interests of the vendor, which means I was able to make my vendor happy. I was able to make my company happy. Even though my MD did not really see it at that point, he was frowning. But on the long run, they were able to see the benefit of what I've done. So I'm expecting whoever the facility manager is, he should be the one to manage that relationship between the organization and the vendor.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. Well understood.
All right. Any other question? Our time is fast spent.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, sir. In this in-house procurement, is there anything like a company price or a standard price? Because sometimes when we check some parts, we discover that those parts they have in fact sometimes we go online to look for some of these parts, but they are the actual price. But when you come to the company, you see that there is a price difference.
Which company? Do you mean the organization you are working for, or the client?
Yes.
The organization. And so every organization that have a very standard procurement department, they are expecting their procurement department to go out on a quarterly basis to do what we call market survey. So the procurement department staff will go out to look for the price of common items that the organization purchases all the time, and they will use it to develop what we call company price list. Now, that company price list, there's likelihood, depending on where they are getting the price from. Are you getting my point now? Depending on where they are getting the price from, depending on who the supplier is. Sometimes they have a supplier, and because it's a supplier, the supplier will not give you the exact price from the market. It's going to have a what they call it, a markup price and everything. So the company will come up with what we call price list, which is an agreed price list between the company and the vendor. They will maintain that price list, which means anytime they are calling for a service for that particular whatever, they will use that price, irrespective of what the price is in the market, until they come back and review the price again. The price stands. So most of the time, so a price list can be quarterly, will be reviewed on a quarterly, and it either goes up or come down, or it can be reviewed annually. So all this issue of inflation, no inflation does not affect it. So most of the time, those prices might be slightly higher than what you have in the market to compensate for the contractor or the vendor's markup, and to compensate for inflation in the market within the period in which the price list will be used.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. So any further question you need to send to Barakat, I'll try my best to answer. Sorry?
I want to clarify on something. A price list and the internship agreement, is it the same thing?
Sorry?
A price list and the retainership agreement, is it the same thing?
Retainership agreement means that just stay aside, we'll be using you for one-off on the long run. Price list will not change. Yes, price will not change, but price list is different. Retainership is that I'm paying for a service, right? And I'm paying you a fixed amount for, in retainership, for example, in law firm, retainership means that I'll be paying you a certain amount of money on a monthly basis for doing nothing, but just be on a standby, so that if I need your service, I can easily call you, right? That's retainership, right? But price list means that I have this 100 items that the company buys on a regular basis, maybe books, A4 paper, toners, refrigerants, gas, and they have it, and they have a lot of vendors they buy from, right? They can develop a price list for all these common items they buy with, and have an agreement with a supplier that will supply this item and agree on a price. So anytime a facility manager wants to buy this thing, he doesn't need to negotiate. You just call the contractor to supply, and the contractor will supply the quotation. The price for the quotation must comply with the price list. It also serves as a guide when the FM team is negotiating. When I was working in Standard Chartered Bank, we have this price list. So when I want to call for a job, right, when the contractor or the vendor brings their quotation, all the line items, I will confirm the price they are putting, if it's the same thing with my price list. If it's not, I'm going to cut it back to that price list, and there's nothing the vendor will do. He will still carry out the job based on that price list. Some will try to inflate the price list, citing a lot of nonsense, but you will have to do it on the price list.
Thank you, sir.
In procurement, sir.
Yeah.
The apart from client and the facility management that we prepare the document, who is involved in procurement, sir?
Procurement is in charge of procurement. Facility management will provide input to the procurement process, but facility management is not in charge of procurement, except the organization does not have a well-defined procurement department. Then the facility manager will probably be in charge of his own procurement. But if your company has a procurement department with a procurement policy and a procurement standard, the procurement is in charge. The only thing, you give them the input, all the input they would need to carry out the procurement services. The technical details, the specification, the requirement, the evaluation criteria, and everything that they will need. They are not the technical person. They don't know your facility stuff. So they don't know. They don't know if it's refrigerant R22 or 4110. They don't know. Their own is give me XYZ. They will go to the market to go and look for that exact thing for you. So you have to be so specific. You have to give the details. If not, they will give you anything. If you say give me gas, they can go and give you cooking gas. It's gas, you call it. Whereas you need the refrigerant gas for your AC. Are you getting my point? If you just say give me AC gas.
So the facility management is the one that will give the specification.
Yes. Then the procurement will go and source.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. So let's call it a day. We'll meet on Friday. Thank you very much.
Yes,